Welcome to From the Porch. I am honored today to be with Mr. Bennett Dodson, and we are both in the runoff for some different positions. And so he is running for County Court at Law number 1, which currently is the family court. And so we're just going to get to know him a little bit better. I love educating you guys, because sometimes you just see all these names on the ballot and you're like, I don't know. And then you call me and ask. And you know, I want you to kind of be able to know the things that are important to you. So hopefully we can dig into a little bit of that. But I always want to back up and go to, you know, how did you become a lawyer? Like, kind of just curious as a kid. You know, my husband was an engineer taking apart his toys. Yeah. We kind of figured it out. How do you figure out you're a lawyer? You argue a lot?
Yeah, so thank you for having me, Shannon. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. The number one question I get from people was like, oh, so are you running for Trey's spot? No. Oh, are you running for Justin's spot? No. So I really appreciate the opportunity to actually explain to people who I am, what I do, and what I'm running for. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things, first of all, you argue a lot, you're nitpicky, you're technical. You know, when adults tell a kid, oh, you'd make a great lawyer, until you become a lawyer, you don't realize, like, oh, that was not a compliment.
Exactly.
The decision point came actually at the end of my undergraduate career at U of H. I majored in liberal studies, which is a degree that U of H has that lets you study. Basically, it was a way to take more political science classes and get out of the math classes. I got to my senior year, and my dad's like, so you're going to law school? I hadn't really thought about it until that point, but it did occur to me at that point that there's not a whole lot of money-making opportunities in the liberal studies career. You know, law school had been something I'd thought about, and the other option was medical school, and I was comparing 4 years plus residency to 3 years of law school, and then you take the bar and you're done. So that seemed like the more attractive option to me. So it's not a particularly inspiring story, but that's how I ended up here. I went to Baylor, got out of school. Elton Mathis offered me a job, and here I am, still in Waller County.
Nice. So what was the first job you did with him then?
So it's a funny story, actually. So you don't get your bar results generally until December. So you take it until October, even though the test is in July. So took the test in July, basically sat around the house in August, did some odd part-time work. And then we got to September, and my dad was like, all right, well, you need to go get a job. So started sending out emails, sending out my resume. Elton was actually, I didn't think I'd get a reply from the district attorney, you know, so he replied. Elton went to Baylor, so that was kind of my in. And we sat down, we had lunch. He said, well, I don't have a job I can offer you right now, but if you don't find anything by December, let me know and I'll have a paid internship or something, which was already a very generous offer for somebody with no law license. And then I think it was about Monday, a week later, he said, hey, we suddenly have an opening. Can you come in and interview with my first assistant? So I interviewed. I guess they liked me because they offered me the job on the spot.
Well, nice. So what is it you actually do, like, on a daily basis when you first started?
So when I first started, we did everything. So in somewhere like Harris County, they have a ton of specialization, right? You start at the very bottom doing traffic tickets, and you work your way all the way up to the top. They have specialty divisions for intake and assisting the police, and for warrants and for appeals. In Waller County, and it's still mostly the case at our office, you know, we're a small county, we do it all. And so when I first started, I was assigned cases A through E, misdemeanors to felonies. I was assigned to JP3. So one day a month I'd go to JP court and do traffic tickets. You know, one day a month we'd go to Carroll courts and we'd do, you know, DWIs, assault family violence, petty theft. And then one day a month we'd go to Judge McCaig's court and handle serious felonies. You know, I was kind of, in most places, they make you work your way up, right? So probably on like my first week on the job, the first assistant, Mia Magnus, walks in and she goes, here, this is for you. It's your first felony. And it was a first-degree felony, aggravated robbery. You know, some guy had a gun stuck in his face. And I was like, you sure you want to give this to me? And she goes, you'll do great. Just read the file. And, you know, I must have done an okay job because that guy decided to take a plea deal. But on a daily basis, what my job generally looks like is I kind of split it into 3 parts mentally. There's trial prep, there's pre-trial, and then there's everything else. So like, for instance, JP court would be in the everything else because they're traffic tickets. They're all the same. You can walk in and fire from the hip on those as an experienced trial attorney. For pre-trial stuff, it's usually examining the cases, identifying what the legal issues are. A big component of that is actually evaluating the cases. Ms. Magnus is always very big on our office that you need to be the one who reviews the case and files your own cases, determines, because whether or not a case goes forward ultimately rests with our office, right? Mm-hmm. So she's very big on it because at Harris County, they have a specialty intake division, right? Those guys have nothing to do with the trial of the case. So they have a very strong tendency to, the cops will call them and say, hey, X, Y, and Z happened. And they'll go, okay, sure, sounds great, send it in. And so then the trial person gets the case and like, who filed this crap? How the heck am I going to prove any of this? And so she's very big in that you need to evaluate the case yourself. So that way, when you're looking at it, who filed this crap? How am I ever going to prove this? Oh, it was me.
Yeah.
So, and
I
then
like that. It's a good way to learn.
trial is, of course, trial. You know, how am I getting this evidence in? What witnesses are going to testify? Can I find those witnesses?
So you sound like you work a lot. So
Yes.
what do we do for fun?
Yeah, so it is definitely not just a 9-to-5 job. We don't get paid by the hour like most lawyers. So when it's time to do your job, it's time to do your job. For fun, you know, I'm recently married. I got married in December of 2024. So we just had our 1-year anniversary. We went on our we call it our real honeymoon because right after the wedding, you know, a lot of people advised us, if you go to Europe or whatever, like you're going to be brain dead from the wedding. You're not going to have any fun. So
That's true.
we saved our real honeymoon for our 1-year anniversary, and I think we had a lot of fun.
Oh,
Went to
nice.
Scottsdale. But, you know, I would say my wife is my best friend. There is no way in heck that I would be managing to run this whole campaign without her assistance. She has
Dude,
been
yes.
my rock, my foundation, and she has done an amazing job at keeping everything together. All the website, all that fancy stuff, she's the one who does all of that. She works for Amazon as a software development, so she, you know, I was always the computer guy growing up, right? And so everyone makes fun of me now because when she starts talking about her job, it's like me talking about the penal code to her. It's just like way over my head. And I originally thought I was going to be a software developer in college because I was the computer guy, right? And I got a C+ in Comp Sci 101, so I was like, all right, well, I guess this isn't going to work out. I better go figure out something to do with history or political science or something. But she moved in with me right around the time we got married, and so I bought the house. And I used to commute from Houston to the DA's office, and I will tell you, driving for 2.5 hours every day on 290 is a good way to become genuinely homicidal. So I was very happy to move to Hempstead and turn my commute from 2.5 hours to 3 minutes to the courthouse. So she moved in with me, and I mean, we just hang out, honestly. You know, but people are always like, oh, you're gonna hate life out in the countryside. You're gonna miss the hustle and bustle of the big city. I do not miss it at all. We hang out with each other. We watch movies. We play video games together. We've got right now 5 cats and a dog. So whenever
Trying to catch up with me. Not
Yes.
quite. Not quite.
whenever we can't find something to do, they are sure to find something to do, and then you know you don't have any other option other than to go along with it.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, we've also been talking a lot about how Waller is growing, so that's going to be more crime coming with it. So I know we're going to probably be building up the court system. We're going to have more and more need for that over the years. So what are your concerns, or what do you see happening with the courts? Because right now it's a family court, and we're saying that might change.
Yes, no, the court will have to go back to being a court of general jurisdiction. The thought was CCL2 can handle most of the criminal caseloads, but it's just too many cases for one court to handle. I think the court's sitting at something like 1,500 pending misdemeanors right now. It's just that's too much, right? So I think the court is going to have to go back to being a court of general jurisdiction. They're already talking about doing a CCL3 because the problem has always been the legislature pays for a district court, and they won't pay for another district court until you hit 100,000 on the census. The district court is already overwhelmed. Gary does a great job, but there's just too many new cases coming in every day, especially with all the new growth, with all the with I-10 and 290, with Houston growing. Montgomery County and Harris County and Fort Bend for instance, the task force cops there will chase people into Waller County because they know we're not going to let them out of jail like they'll get let out of jail in Harris County. So that contributes a lot to the growth. I don't know that there's any other option other than to put our noses to the grindstone and work through it. You know, if we demonstrate to these people, word gets around, right? They all talk to each other. If the crooks, and this is Mr. Whitmore's philosophy as well. If we put our nose to the grindstone and let people know that Waller County is not a place to mess around, and we have an efficient court system that respects people's rights and, you know, keeps an orderly house in the county, then I think that will lead to. I think that's how we beat it. Because you know, one of the reasons they have so much trouble in Harris County is the crooks think the court system's a joke. They go to court, they get a PR bond, they go to court, they get probation, they violate their probation 6 or 7 times, and they do 15 days in the county jail, and they're like, that was whatever, I'll do it all over again. So I think if we can have an efficient court system, an orderly court system, and DA and the DAs and the obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but I think the DA and the Sheriff's Department are headed in the right direction. Then I think that's how we beat it. That's how we get ahead of it.
Yeah, sounds good. I agree. And I just know on the civil side, I've been in there and had times where judges were kind of just wishy-washy and not really ready to make a hard decision. Yeah. And it just slows things down and makes people do more lawsuits. And we got to be firm and again, respect rights, like you said, but also follow through with this is the law and this is the consequence.
Your one job, people talk about their record as a private attorney and what kind of law they specialize in, but the ultimate, this is just my opinion, obviously, but your job as a judge is to make decisions. That's why people go to court, because they can't reach a decision together. Right. So if you are not making a decision as a judge, right or wrong, you're not doing your job.
Right.
And so it is, like you said, on civil lawsuits, civil lawsuits aren't quite the same as a criminal lawsuit, because, a crime has to be tried, right? Civil doesn't necessarily have to be tried, but if the lawyers know you're not, civil lawyers get paid by the hour, right? So if they know you're just going to give them more time, they're not going to be in any rush to settle the case. They're not going to be in any rush to make a decision or push a decision.
Right.
And that's ultimately, I think, what the judge has to do to keep the system moving.
Well, anything else you can think of that we need to educate the people about the system or about how you're the best for the job?
Well, of course, there is always my stump speech. I've been an assistant district attorney for 7 years now in Waller County, and this is a little blurb on my website, but being a prosecutor really prepares you to make a judge, because you have to make those decisions, right? The defense attorney's job, one defense attorney described it to me, is to get in the way, right? Is to find the holes, find somewhere you can jump through. And, obviously somebody has to be there to protect the defendant's rights. But as a prosecutor, it's your job to push the case forward. And so just like it's a judge's job to make decision, it's your job as the judge to see that cases are resolved in a timely manner and see that our decisions are made. When you make deadlines, you got to stick to them. Lawyers know when they go in front of a judge which judge is going to stick to their deadline and which judge is going to give them 3, 4, 5, 6 continuances. And so I think as a prosecutor, that reputation is greatly beneficial to being the one to push cases forward. And, you see it in Fort Bend, Harris County, Montgomery County. There's a lot of prosecutors who become judges, and they're typically very well-respected judges. And I hope I can be one of those judges as well.
So share a little bit more about your faith with us so we kind of know who you are.
Yeah, so I am a Christian. I grew up going to St. John the Divines in Houston, which is an Episcopal church. I moved out here, obviously being a single guy and being so busy at my job. I haven't been going as often as I should, but I recently got invited to attend at First Baptist Church, where me and my wife have been going, and I really enjoy it. I like the way the pastor speaks, and I think he's got I like the text, as a lawyer, I like the textually focused, like, let's look at the actual words of the scripture. And I also feel like, you can interpret things however you want, right? But the words on the page are the words on the page. And so I really appreciate that. As far as being a Christian, I feel like it strongly influences my practice, just because, as lawyers, we're experts at talking ourselves into things, right? Ourselves and other people's. You can convince yourself of anything. So I feel like really to be an effective lawyer and an effective judge, you need that spiritual principle, that moral guiding compass, because the law should never be mistaken for religion, and religion should never be mistaken for the law, and never two the twixt shall meet. But to pretend that our legal system is not influenced by Judeo-Christian moral principles is silly. And so I think by maybe focusing on that as, like, where am I going with this? What am I trying to do with this? I think that really is the way to look at the legal system, the justice system, and kind of make sure you stay, don't get lost in the trees. Stay focused on the mission and what you're trying to do.
Yeah. But you kind of have to have a definition of what is right and wrong besides the law, too, just with, family cases and things, and about, the whole point of I started this podcast was about loving your neighbor. And when you're in the middle of that court and they're fighting over a kid or things like that, that's going to happen in the family court, you're going to try to get back to hearing what they're saying too on that level of seeing their love. So I mean, there's stuff that's not always just constitutional and legal.
Exactly.
To be able to interpret those decisions that you're going to be having to make in that family court. So yeah, so we're just curious, a little bit about how you make those decisions. So thank you for sharing a little bit about your faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's important to me. As most of y'all know, I've been fighting for the 10 Commandments to be at our courthouse, which is coming soon. Hopefully that we've got it all. We've got all the money and the funding, and we're just trying to get that going. So it's just always a good reminder that God's word was a foundation, and if you go back and look at them, it's pretty clear that they're important, basic tenets.
Yeah. I go back to ye old England, that there was a time in the history of our legal system that was the law, right? Like trial by combat. All right, you guys fight and God will sort it out. Now, obviously, I don't think we should do things that way, but again, to pretend that it has no influence whatsoever on our legal system, and our legal system is wholly atheistic and divorced from everything, that's silly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds good. Well, thanks for sharing, and we will make sure that we share your website on the link. We'll share it with our friends. So thank y'all for getting to know your neighbor, Mr. Bennett Dodson, running again for County Court at Law number 1. And I just ask that you just get to know your neighbors. Make sure you subscribe and then share so we can get to know all of our neighbors. Thanks.